The box was wrapped in cheerful paper adorned with Santas and reindeer. It sat under the tree in our cozy Wisconsin home, just another present among many that Christmas morning. Inside was a popular DNA testing kit, a gift born of simple, modern curiosity. My brother had bought one for everyone in the family. We all thought it would be a fun project for a cold winter. We imagined discovering distant cousins in Ireland, or perhaps a sliver of Scandinavian heritage we could joke about. The idea was innocent. It was a game, a way to map our family tree and confirm the stories we had always been told. We had no reason to suspect it would be anything more than that. This small box held the promise of connection to a shared past, a past we thought we knew intimately. We spit into the little plastic vials with a sense of playful ceremony. We laughed as we sealed the envelopes and sent them off to a laboratory somewhere far away. The act itself felt trivial, like a science experiment from grade school. For weeks we forgot about them entirely. Life went on as it always had. I worked my job as a counselor, helping others navigate their own complex lives, never imagining the complexity about to erupt in my own. The results were just a background thought, a notification we would get to eventually. The anticipation was mild, the stakes seemingly non-existent. We were a family, solid and defined. What could a simple DNA test possibly change for us? The email arrived on a Tuesday. "Your DNA results are in," the subject line read. I opened it without a second thought, expecting to see pie charts of European ancestry. I clicked through the pages, my eyes scanning the percentages and maps. It was interesting, but not earth-shattering. Then I saw the section for DNA relatives. My brother's name was there, as expected, but my father's name was not. Instead, there was a stranger listed as my parent, a name I had never seen before. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. It had to be a mistake, a glitch in the system, a simple, explainable error. The foundations of my identity, the very story of me, began to feel unstable under my feet. I refreshed the page again and again, hoping the screen would correct itself. But the strange name remained, stubbornly fixed in the space where my father's should have been. The man who raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and drive a car, was not my biological father. The screen in front of me was rewriting 27 years of my life in cold digital text. The warmth of our Christmas morning felt like a distant, impossible memory. The innocent gift had become a harbinger of chaos. It had opened a door I never knew existed, and on the other side was a truth that would shatter the world I had so confidently inhabited. The silence in my small apartment was suddenly deafening, filled with questions that had no answers. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the list of DNA relatives. There he was again, this stranger, listed with the highest possible confidence as my biological father. His profile was sparse, offering only a name and a general location. I felt a surge of disbelief mixed with a terrifying sense of clarity. So many small things from my childhood suddenly clicked into place. The comments from relatives about how I didn't look like my dad, the way my hair was curly while everyone else's was straight. These were tiny, insignificant details that now felt like massive, overlooked clues. The story of my life, a narrative I had co-authored with my parents, was starting to feel like a work of fiction. I called my brother first, my voice shaking so much I could barely form the words. I asked him to check his own results and compare them to mine. He confirmed the unthinkable. We were half-siblings. We shared a mother, but not a father. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy, a shared space of shock and confusion. He tried to offer logical explanations. Maybe the lab made a mistake. Maybe there was a mix-up. But we both knew, deep down, that the science was rarely wrong on this scale. The digital proof was irrefutable, a stark and unforgiving truth that had been hiding in our very cells all along. The next step was the hardest. I had to confront my mother. I drove to my parents' house, the same house I grew up in, but it felt alien to me now. Every familiar landmark on the way seemed to mock my newfound uncertainty. Who was I, if not the daughter of the man I called Dad? I sat with my mother in the living room, the DNA results open on my laptop between us. I asked her to explain. Her face, a face I knew as well as my own, crumbled. The color drained from her cheeks, and her eyes filled with a pain I had never seen before. She looked at the screen, then at me, and the years of silence finally broke. Her confession came out in a torrent of sobs and whispered words. She and my father had struggled with infertility for years. They were desperate for a child. In a moment of despair, without telling my father, she had turned to a fertility clinic. She had used an anonymous sperm donor. She had carried this secret alone for nearly 3 decades, a heavy burden she thought she would take to her grave. She never wanted to hurt anyone, she explained. She just wanted a family. She just wanted me. But in her desire to create a family, she had built its foundation on a secret, a lie of omission that had now come crashing down around us all. The air in the living room grew thick with the weight of her words. My mother's confession hung between us, a ghost that had haunted our family from my very conception. She explained the desperation she felt all those years ago, the monthly heartbreak, the feeling of failure, the fear that she would never hold a child of her own. The clinic was a last resort, a place of science and hope. The process was meant to be anonymous, sterile, and safe. She was told the donor was a healthy medical student, carefully screened and selected. She chose to believe it. She chose not to tell my father, convincing herself it was a secret that would protect him from the pain of his own infertility. She described the immense guilt she carried every single day. Every birthday, every holiday, every time my father looked at me with pride, a part of her felt the sting of her deception. She had constructed a beautiful life for us, but it was a life built on a fragile premise. She had hoped the secret would remain buried forever, a silent sacrifice she had made for the sake of our family's happiness. Now, watching her break down, I saw not a liar, but a woman who had made a complicated choice in a moment of profound vulnerability. The secret had been her prison, and the DNA test was the key that had finally unlocked the door, exposing everything to the light. My father's reaction was a quiet storm of devastation. When my mother finally told him the truth, his world tilted on its axis. The daughter he had raised, the child he had loved as his own, was not his. The betrayal he felt was immense, not directed at me, but at the woman he had trusted for over 30 years. Their marriage, already strained by the quiet resentments that build over time, could not withstand the force of this revelation. The secret acted like a fissure, splitting their shared history in two. The home that had once been a place of comfort and security became a landscape of sorrow and unspoken accusations. The decision for them to divorce came quickly. There was too much history, too much pain to navigate a path back to what they once were. The secret had been a poison, slowly seeping into the roots of their relationship for decades. Its discovery was the final fatal dose. I watched my family, the only one I had ever known, dissolve before my eyes. The Christmas gift that had promised a fun exploration of our heritage had instead delivered a verdict on our future. It had taken everything we thought was solid and turned it into dust, leaving us to figure out how to piece our lives back together from the rubble. With the truth of my conception revealed, a new and more sinister question emerged. Who was this anonymous man, this stranger who was my biological father? My initial shock gave way to a determined need for answers. I started digging, using the few details I had from the DNA website. His name was not common, and a few online searches led me to a man who lived just a few towns over. The pieces began to fall into place with a horrifying speed. This was not some anonymous medical student. He was a lab technician who had worked at the very fertility clinic my mother had visited all those years ago. The implications were chilling. He had not been a donor in the traditional sense. He had been an employee with access to the clinic's most sensitive materials. He had used his position of trust to deceive countless women who were at their most vulnerable. He had swapped out the selected donor samples and used his own over and over again. This was not a story of altruism or a simple desire to help. It was a story of profound ethical violation, a deep and calculated deception that had gone undetected for decades. The man who was my biological father was not a hero. He was a predator who had exploited his power. My research connected me with a few other people who had matched with him on the DNA site. They all had similar stories. They were born in the same region, around the same time, and their parents had all used the same fertility clinic. We were a cohort of unknowing half-siblings, our lives unknowingly intertwined by the actions of this one man. The scale of his deception began to dawn on me. He hadn't done this just once or twice. He had done this dozens of times, creating a secret lineage of children who had no idea of their shared origin. We were the living, breathing evidence of his crimes. The discovery was sickening. It changed the nature of my search from a personal quest for identity to something much larger and darker. It was no longer just about me and my family. It was about uncovering a massive fraud and seeking justice for all the families he had violated. The shadow of this man loomed large over my life, casting a darkness on my very origins. He was not just a biological fact, he was the architect of a lie that had impacted dozens, perhaps hundreds of people. The need for the truth became a mission, not just for my own peace of mind, but for all the others who were still out there, living in ignorance. The small group of us who had found each other online decided to act. We started a private social media group, a digital haven for the children of the lab technician. Every week, it seemed, a new person would join, their story echoing our own. A DNA test taken on a whim, a shocking discovery, a family thrown into turmoil. The number of my known half-siblings grew from 2 to 5, then to 10, and then to over 50. We were a sprawling, unintentional family spread across Wisconsin and beyond, connected by a man we had never met and a secret we were only just beginning to understand. We shared photos and stories, searching for resemblances and common traits. We found them in our curly hair, our eye color, our shared artistic talents. It was both comforting and deeply unsettling to see my own features reflected in the faces of strangers. These were my brothers and sisters, yet we had grown up in separate worlds, completely unaware of each other's existence. We were a web of lives that should have been connected, but had been kept apart by one man's deception. Our online group became a place of support, a community forged in the fires of a shared, unbelievable truth. Our collective story soon attracted the attention of the media, and with it, the police. An official investigation was launched into the fertility clinic and the lab technician. The scope of his actions was far greater than any of us had imagined. He had worked at the clinic for over 2 decades, a period during which hundreds of procedures were performed. The records were old and incomplete, making it difficult to know the true number of children he had fathered. But the genetic evidence was undeniable. We were his children, a fact proven by science, even as the paper trail remained murky. The police investigation uncovered more disturbing details. When they searched the donor's home, they found meticulous records he had kept himself. He had binders filled with notes on the women whose samples he had swapped. He had tracked our births, our names, and in some cases even our childhoods from a distance. He had been a silent, hidden figure in our lives all along, a secret observer of the families he had created through deceit. This revelation was perhaps the most chilling of all. He hadn't just committed the act and forgotten. He had savored his secret, keeping a private archive of his genetic legacy. The fallout from the discovery reshaped my entire world. My parents' divorce was finalized, and the family home was sold. The place that held all my childhood memories was now just a property, its warmth replaced by the cold reality of what had happened within its walls. My father, the man who raised me, struggled deeply with the truth. Our relationship became strained, filled with an awkwardness that had never existed before. He loved me, I knew that, but the knowledge that I was not his biological child created a distance between us, a chasm of unspoken pain that we are still learning how to cross. As for me, I felt a strange sense of being unmoored. My past was not what I thought it was, and my future felt uncertain. I decided to leave my counseling job, feeling that I could not guide others through their turmoil while my own life was in such chaos. I moved to a new city, seeking a fresh start and a sense of anonymity. I began to build a new life, one that was not defined by the secret that had once held my family captive. I started to connect more deeply with my newfound half-siblings, finding a strange and powerful comfort in our shared experience. We were a family of a different kind, one born not of tradition, but of a shared shocking truth. The police investigation eventually stalled. The statute of limitations for fraud had long since passed, and the legal framework was ill-equipped to handle a crime of this nature. The lab technician, my biological father, would never face legal consequences for his actions. He remained a free man living a quiet life, while the families he had shattered were left to pick up the pieces. There was no neat resolution, no courtroom justice. There was only the messy, complicated reality of our lives, forever altered by what he had done. The lack of legal closure was a bitter pill to swallow for all of us. This story is a testament to the enduring power of secrets. It shows how a single lie, buried for decades, can erupt with the force of an earthquake, shaking the very foundations of a family. It reveals how modern technology, in its quest to connect us to our past, can sometimes uncover truths we are not prepared to face. The innocent Christmas gift did more than just map our ancestry. It redrew the map of our entire lives. It taught me that some secrets are not meant to be kept, and that the truth, no matter how painful, has a way of coming to light. And when it does, it changes everything, forever. Gap 2S. The investigation may have stalled, but the official files tell a story all their own. In the sterile language of witness statements and police transcripts, the chilling reality of what happened emerges, piece by fragmented piece. Gap 2S. Detective's voice distorted, transcript overlay. Interview with Mrs. L. 2. 17 p.m. March 14th. He always seemed so ordinary. I never suspected anything. But when I saw the test results, I knew something wasn't right. Gap 2S. Voiceover continues. The statements pile up. Patients, nurses, even other doctors. All recall the same man, quiet, precise, unremarkable. Yet, as the transcripts reveal, his access to the clinic's donor files was nearly unlimited. Police transcript, monotone read. Question: did you ever notice Dr. S accessing restricted files? Answer: not that I recall, but he was always the last to leave. Sometimes I'd see him in the records room late at night. Gap 2S. Voiceover. The evidence grows more unsettling. Security footage, grainy and incomplete, shows the technician moving through the clinic after hours, his face half-shadowed, his actions methodical. Lab logs, altered in subtle ways, vials mislabeled, records missing. Forensic report, clinical tone. DNA analysis confirms a match between the technician and the children in question. Probability of paternity exceeds 99.99%. Gap 2S. Voiceover, lower, urgent. But the most chilling detail is in the handwritten notes found tucked deep in an old file cabinet. A list of dates, initials, and cryptic checkmarks. No explanation, no context. Just a silent ledger of lives altered forever. Gap 2S. As the investigation files fade to black, the true scope of the betrayal lingers. Unanswered questions, unresolved pain, and the uneasy knowledge that some secrets are hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone to look just a little bit closer. But just when it seems the last page has turned, another fragment surfaces, one that threatens to unravel everything once more. Gap 2S. Deep within a forgotten box of archived clinic files, an anonymous envelope is discovered. Gap 2S. Inside, a single unmarked USB drive. Gap 2S. The contents are cryptic, encrypted folders, dozens of redacted documents, and a video file titled Only For Them. Gap 2S. The video flickers to life. A hooded figure, voice disguised, speaks directly to the camera. Distorted robotic voice. If you found this, you don't know the whole story. Gap 2S. The truth goes deeper than the files, deeper than the clinic. Gap 2S. There are more names. Gap 2S. More secrets. Gap 2S. Look for the ledger in the safe deposit box. Gap 2S. Trust no one. Gap 2S. The screen glitches, abruptly ending the message. Gap 2S. Investigators rush to follow the new lead, but the trail turns cold. No safe deposit box is ever found. The ledger remains missing, and the sender's identity is never uncovered. Gap 2S. The case, once so close to closure, is left suspended, haunted by a single, unanswered question. How many more secrets are still hidden, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them? Just as the investigation appears to stall, another shockwave hits. Gap 2S. A key witness, long silent, suddenly steps forward, her name withheld for her protection. Gap 2S. In a dimly lit interview room, her hands tremble as she recounts her story. Gap 2S. Distorted, nervous female voice. They told me to say I'd never seen him. Gap 1S. But I did. Gap 1S. I saw the donor. He came in more than once. Gap 1S. He wasn't just a number in a file. Gap 1S. He was involved. Gap 2S. The statement contradicts everything the clinic and other staff have claimed. Gap 2S. Tension fills the air as the family listens to the recording for the first time, faces pale, hearts racing, old wounds ripped open. Gap 2S. Could the man they'd imagined as a distant stranger have played a far greater role in their lives than they ever knew? Gap 2S. Younger siblings exchange anxious glances. Gap 1S. A mother's eyes well with tears, her memories suddenly uncertain. Gap 2S. The room buzzes with questions. Who else lied? Gap 1S. What else was hidden? Gap 2S. This new testimony doesn't just cast doubt, it fractures the fragile trust built by months of searching. Gap 2S. Now, the family must confront the possibility that the truth is even more complicated and more painful than they ever feared. A new chapter unfolds under the sterile glow of a police interrogation room. Gap 2S. The suspected donor sits across from investigators, his silhouette rigid, his face shadowed by uncertainty. Gap 2S. The officer's press record. Gap 1S. What follows is not just testimony, but a transcript that peels back yet another layer of the mystery. Distorted male voice. Reading transcript. Detective, You stated you only visited the clinic once. Are you certain about that? Suspect hesitates. That's what I remember, yes. Detective, records show your signature on multiple entry logs. How do you explain that? Suspect, voice falters. Maybe I forgot. It was a long time ago. I was under a lot of stress. Gap 2S. The transcript crackles with tension as investigators push harder. Detective, were you ever in contact with the staff outside official appointments? Suspect. No, I don't think so. Detective, we have a statement that contradicts that. Someone saw you meeting with a staff member, late after hours. Suspect, defensive. That's not true. I don't know what they're talking about. Gap 2S. The interview grows more uneasy as evidence mounts. A forgotten keycard, a series of late-night phone calls, an unsigned letter found in the clinic's archives. Gap 2S. The donor's responses become inconsistent, his recollections tangled. Gap 2S. Each answer raises more questions than it resolves. As the transcript ends, investigators exchange wary looks. Gap 2S. The family listening through a one-way mirror feels the ground shift beneath them. Gap 2S. The truth is no longer just elusive, it's actively slipping away, obscured by half-memories and hidden motives. Gap 2S. What really happened behind the clinic's doors? Gap 1S. And how deep does the deception go? Gap 2S. The case, once thought nearly closed, is now more open and more haunting than ever before. A single envelope rests atop a stack of old clinic files, its edges yellowed, its seal barely clinging to the paper. Gap 2S. It is discovered not by an investigator but by the family's eldest daughter, searching for closure in the cold archives. Gap 2S. With trembling hands, she opens it, revealing a letter and a folded document inside. Gap 1S. The letter, handwritten and unsigned, hints at a desperate confession. If anyone finds this, please know, I had no choice. I did what I thought was right, but I am haunted by what I left behind. Gap 2S. The daughter's breath catches as she unfolds the second page, a DNA test, dated years before the investigation began. Gap 2S. The names are blurred with age, but the results are clear. The suspected donor is not the biological father of the siblings as everyone believed. Gap 1S. Instead, another name, one never mentioned in the investigation, appears as a match. Gap 2S. Shock ripples through the family as the revelation sinks in. Gap 1S. The truth they thought they'd uncovered is now upended, replaced by a darker, more complicated secret. Gap 2S. The investigation has been chasing the wrong shadow. Gap 1S. As the family gathers around the letter, the weight of the new evidence presses upon them, mixing relief with fresh uncertainty. Gap 2S. The story is far from over. In fact, it has only just begun. Night has fallen, wrapping the house in a hush broken only by the low murmur of voices. The family sits together, shoulder to shoulder on the worn living room couch, the envelope and its contents laid out before them like fragile relics. The eldest daughter, her voice trembling but steady, reads the letter aloud once more. Each word hangs in the air, heavy with meaning and regret. Their mother, eyes glistening with tears, reaches for her children's hands. For the first time, she speaks openly of her choices, the fear, the hope, and the impossible decisions that shape their lives. The siblings listen, their anger softened by the vulnerability in her voice. One by one, they share their own truths. The youngest confesses to feelings of betrayal, but also relief that the uncertainty is finally over. The middle child, always the mediator, talks about forgiveness, not just for their mother, but for themselves, for holding on to expectations of a perfect family. Outside, rain patters against the window, a quiet rhythm to their reckoning. They talk through the night, sometimes in whispers, sometimes in tears, sometimes in laughter as old memories resurface amid the sorrow. The secrets that once divided them now serve as threads, weaving them closer together. In the early hours as dawn begins to break, the family comes to a silent understanding. The truth, no matter how tangled or painful, is theirs now. They cannot change the past, but together, they can shape what comes next. The camera lingers on their joined hands, the soft glow of morning light signaling not an end, but a new beginning, one built on honesty, acceptance, and the unspoken promise that they will face whatever comes, together. As the first rays of sunlight filter through the curtains, the house stirs with a sense of quiet resolution. The family, exhausted yet lighter, gathers once more around the kitchen table, this time not as fractured souls, but as a unit forged by truth. The mother, her voice steady, produces one last envelope from her pocket. It is the original letter from the donor, words she had hidden away, afraid of what they might mean. With trembling hands, she reads it aloud. The donor's message is simple: a wish for the children to know where they came from, and a hope that the truth would bring healing, not harm. The final revelation lands gently, a confirmation that the donor, a kind man who once crossed paths with their mother in a moment of mutual vulnerability, had never meant to cast a shadow, only to offer a chance at life. In this moment, the siblings look at one another, not as strangers bound by circumstance, but as family by choice and resilience. Questions that haunted them now have answers, and the tapestry of their lineage, though woven with unexpected threads, is richer for its honesty. They step outside together, the storm having passed. The world is washed clean, glistening with the promise of new beginnings. As the camera pans out, the family stands in the golden light, united, not by the secrets that once divided them, but by the courage to face the truth and the love that endures. In the end, it is not the secret that defines them, but how they choose to move forward. Together, hearts open, ready to write the next chapter of their story. Fade to black. Just as the family dares to breathe in the calm of newfound truth, a knock rattles the front door. The camera lingers on anxious faces as a detective steps into the golden-lit room, his expression grave. He carries not more envelopes, but a digital recorder, evidence from a late-night interview that threatens to unravel everything. The family gathers, hearts pounding as the detective presses play. A new voice crackles through the speaker, shaky, urgent, unmistakably familiar. It's Mrs. Jensen, the neighbor who always watched from across the street, her presence previously dismissed as peripheral, but her words are a bolt of lightning. I saw someone else, someone who wasn't the donor. The night before the letter arrived, a man in a dark coat stood in the driveway. He argued with your mother. I heard him say, "They can never know." I thought it was just a lover's quarrel, but now, I'm not so sure. The room chills, the certainty of the morning shattered. The mother's face drains of color as the siblings exchange panicked glances. Could there be another player in their story? A hidden figure whose motives remain in shadow? The detective's voice is low. Mrs. Jensen's statement doesn't match your mother's account. There may be more to this than any of us realized. We need to reopen the investigation. There's another suspect, a man connected not by blood, but by secrets. The camera closes in on trembling hands, eyes wide with fear and disbelief. The family's unity, so hard won, is tested once more. The stakes have never been higher. As the detective leaves, promising answers but bringing only more questions, the family is left standing at the edge of uncertainty. Hearts pounding, trust fraying, the past refusing to stay buried. The screen fades to black, the suspense unresolved. The truth, it seems, is not finished with them yet. The screen flickers to life with the cold blue glow of a police interrogation room. Words appear line by line as a transcript scrolls across the screen. The voices are faceless, distorted, official, but unmistakably belonging to two central figures, the mother and the family's eldest sibling. Detective, transcript. You claim you never saw this man before the night in question, but our records show 3 phone calls between your number and his, weeks prior. Mother, transcript. I don't remember. Maybe he called by mistake. Eldest sibling, transcript. That's not true, Mom. I saw you with him at the pharmacy. You said he was just asking for directions. Mother, transcript. Voice cracks. I was trying to protect you, both of you. Detective, transcript. Protect them from what, ma'am? Mother, transcript. Long silence. He knew things about our family, things I never told anyone. Eldest sibling, transcript. You said Dad was the only one, that there were no secrets left. Mother, transcript. I wanted to believe that, but he threatened me. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd ruin us all. Detective, transcript. Did you know him before the donor arrangement? Mother, transcript. Yes, years ago. He wasn't supposed to come back. The tension thickens as the transcript exposes cracks in the family's fragile trust. The eldest sibling's eyes fill with betrayal, the mother's with regret. Conflicting evidence, phone records, surveillance footage, old photographs, flashes across the screen. Every new detail is a blow, each revelation a wedge. Detective, transcript. We have reason to believe he's not just a stranger. He's connected to both of you in ways you never imagined. The screen pauses on the final line, the cursor blinking. The family is left reeling, truth and lies tangled, the past colliding with the present. The hidden connection has surfaced, but the consequences are only just beginning. Music swells, the camera zooms out on the transcript, and the scene fades, leaving viewers breathless. wondering who this man truly is and what secrets are still to be uncovered. The scene opens with a slow pan across a cluttered evidence board, photographs, documents, and strings connecting fragments of the case. A gloved hand lays a new envelope at the center. The camera lingers on the label for immediate review. A detective's shadow falls across the table as the envelope is torn open. Inside, a series of photographs spill out, grainy, time-stamped, unmistakably real. The protagonist, previously steadfast in their innocence, is captured in the background of a surveillance image, exiting a building at the exact time of the incident. A gasp breaks the silence. A family member, voice trembling. "That can't be. They said they were home all night." The detective's voice, barely above a whisper. "The timestamps don't lie. These were taken less than a block from where it happened." A rapid montage. Close-up of the protagonist's face, eyes wide with disbelief, the beginnings of panic. The mother's hands shaking as she clutches a photograph, tears welling. The eldest sibling backing away in shock, their trust beginning to fracture. Doubt creeps into the room like a chill. The protagonist, voice cracking, pleads, "I don't remember being there. I swear I don't know how this is possible." The detective's gaze hardens. "We need answers, now." A long, loaded silence. The family exchanges glances, fear, confusion, suspicion swirling in their eyes. But then, the truth emerges. A final piece of evidence is revealed, a second set of DNA results overlooked until now. The detective reads aloud, voice steady. The DNA from the scene does not match the protagonist. It matches another family member. Shock ripples through the room, but this time it is followed by relief and heartbreak in equal measure. The family gathers, embracing through tears, relieved that the protagonist is innocent, devastated by the betrayal within. The true culprit, unable to bear the weight of guilt, confesses quietly, "I'm sorry, I never meant for any of this to happen." The detective nods solemnly, closing the case file. Justice, though painful, is finally served. The camera lingers on the family, wounded but together, holding each other as the truth settles in. The music softens, carrying a note of hope and forgiveness. As dawn breaks, the family sits together, united by honesty and the promise of healing. The story ends not with suspicion, but with understanding, a reminder that even the darkest secrets can lead to light, and that forgiveness is possible. Fade to black.